The Ten Commandments are not just a list of rules, they are a window into the heart of God. They reveal his deep desire for righteousness and justice. Jesus understood this. He taught that true righteousness went beyond outward obedience, it required a transformation of the heart. Jesus often used the Ten Commandments as a starting point for his teachings. He wanted people to understand the deeper meaning behind the laws. He knew that the law was meant to guide people toward a life of love and respect for God and others. For Jesus, righteousness was not about ticking boxes, it was about embodying the spirit of the law. It was about treating others with the same dignity and respect that God shows us. Every human being is made in the image of God. This means that every person deserves to be treated with love and honor. Throughout his ministry, Jesus challenged the hypocrisy of those who claim to uphold the law while neglecting its true essence. He showed that true righteousness flowed from a heart transformed by God's love. This love would naturally lead to actions that honored God and respected others. One example of Jesus' deeper understanding of the law is found in his teaching on anger. The commandment "you shall not murder" seems straightforward. However, Jesus went further. He said that even anger toward a brother or sister was a serious offense. Jesus taught that anger is often rooted in contempt. It is a disregard for the inherent worth of another person. When we harbor anger, we allow a seed of bitterness to grow in our hearts. This can ultimately lead to more destructive behaviors. Jesus' words challenge us to examine our hearts. We must confront the anger and resentment that we may harbor. These emotions not only damage our relationships, they also contradict God's call to love our neighbors as ourselves. By equating anger with murder in the heart, Jesus reveals the importance of cultivating inner peace and forgiveness. He calls us to address the root causes of conflict and to seek reconciliation with those we have wronged. Jesus also addressed the commandment, "You shall not commit adultery." He expanded its meaning beyond the physical act. He taught that lusting after another person in one's heart was also a sin. This teaching challenged the common notion of the time. Many believed that only the physical act of adultery was wrong. Jesus emphasized that lust objectifies the other person. It reduces them to an object of desire rather than seeing them as a person created in God's image. Lust disregards the inherent dignity and respect that every person deserves. It feeds a selfish desire that can lead to harmful actions. This teaching calls us to purity of heart. It challenges us to guard our thoughts and desires. We are to treat others with respect, avoiding any actions or thoughts that would objectify or demean them. Jesus' teaching on lust emphasizes the importance of inner purity. He reminds us that true righteousness involves aligning our thoughts, desires, and actions with God's will. This requires constant vigilance and a commitment to living in the light of God's truth. Jesus also addressed the topic of divorce, a subject often debated in his day. He referred back to God's original design for marriage. He stated that God created marriage to be a lifelong covenant between one man and one woman. While the Mosaic law allowed for divorce under certain circumstances, Jesus emphasized the sanctity and permanence of the marriage bond. He taught that divorce should only be considered in cases of adultery. This stance challenged the cultural norms that often marginalized and disadvantaged women. Jesus' teaching on divorce highlights his concern for the vulnerable. He desired to protect women from the injustices they often faced in divorce proceedings. His words affirm the value and dignity of both spouses within the covenant of marriage. By upholding the sanctity of marriage, Jesus calls us to prioritize reconciliation and forgiveness. He reminds us that marriage is a sacred bond reflecting God's love for his people.